Okay, Duvid back here. I'm not sure I had crap reception. Um, International Battery Show, and ironically, there's some sort of fire alarm, so everyone has had to exit and waiting outside. It's unclear what's going on. Um, I'm not sure. I deleted that last video. It seemed to have had crap reception, so waiting to see if they let us back in, and so you get a view of what's going on here, and something you don't see very often. A whole convention, one of the larger conventions in Michigan, and everyone outside due to a fire emergency. So hopefully some people tune in and tell me if my reception's working. So I'll just ramble a little bit here on Battery Show, the state of Metro Detroit, the convention center where I am. I'm in the suburb here of Novi, Michigan, about 15 minutes from my house. And over the last few years, most of the conventions have been held here in the suburbs. I'd mentioned on some of the streams, the main convention center downtown Detroit, Cobo Hall, has had a decline. It's owned and ran by the city, and it was actually renamed recently TFC, Twin Financial Corporation, that is ran by someone I know, Gary Torgau, Provost, one of the main sponsors of the Detroit City Chess Club. But for over $30 million, they purchased the naming rights of Cobo Hall. And however, the auto show, Society of Automotive Manufacturers, still there, other things. But most of the shows are happening out here in Novi. Mr. Fisher, also a Jewish man, suburban collection, multi-generational auto dealership, has purchased this hall, expanded it, and some sort of fire emergency. So everyone's standing outside, and now it's unclear. Like, they just let people in, and now they push them out, and maybe they're letting people back in again. So we'll see what happens. But about 4 years ago, they started organizing the International Battery Show, which is specific to batteries. And as I was mentioning, Detroit, even though the automotive manufacturer has declined, there's still somewhat of a headquartering of activity here in that. So it looks like they're letting people back in. So hopefully see what's going on. So even though most cars aren't made in Detroit anymore, Detroit is still one of the headquarters for manufacturing in thank you, Josh, super chat. Duvid appreciates super chat. So hopefully you're gonna get to see some good technology. Okay, so we're trying to figure out what's going on with some sort of fire emergency, and people are going in different entrances. So hopefully they figured out what caused the fire alarm. So pretty amazing that you have a fire emergency. Obviously you have heavy technology, machinery set up in here. Anything could have triggered a fire alarm. There's also a hotel, it could have been anything. So ironically, this is the first time I've seen this. This is one of the bigger shows in Metro Detroit, thousands of people. So it's kind of ironic to see all these engineers from all over the world outside because of a fire emergency. The demographics here in the suburbs versus Detroit, interesting to note also. Although I'm here to talk mostly about batteries, so hopefully I'll get back in and we'll see. As I said, for a manufacturer, at least in the sales department, you'll call it automotive or bust, because statistically over half of all manufacturing is automotive. Automobiles are the single largest component that is manufactured, and if you have a component that you're making a mechanical device, you want to get into the automotive sector because that's going to be your biggest sales component. So you're multicultural Detroit. And so batteries, obviously all automobiles have batteries. The old lead acid batteries that make up most automobiles going back to now electric buses and all different sorts of components that go in the new electric vehicles to battery manufacturers. It'd be interesting to see Chinese companies. Historically, these conventions would have been like 30-40% German, but now you've seen it might be down to like 10-20% German. We also got in a lot of Japanese, fire and power issues. You could sing like my thoughts. Engineers pick up cause some sort of change in electricity. Two different compounds that will electrons in a stored manner. So you might have these two different compounds separated by some sort of film or method of batteries that are used in electric vehicles. And there's divergent research, so they'll have the top engineers and research scientists from manufacturers. So I'm actually seeing less Chinese companies. So I don't know if President Trump, when he came to Michigan, actually spoke from this very room. Those campaigns that he will make a rally in this very room. So I do notice that there's quite works says turn into hell if you're not an initiated engineer and familiar with the business to know what companies how big they are. You say like Ramp F is a big company, Siemens, Lord, DuPont. These companies make hundreds of thousands of products. Some of these machinery companies, but you think like who are all these billionaires in China? And a lot of them are in the manufacturing sector where they make tons of components for manufacturing processes, things that if you're not an engineer you may never even thought about. All the different devices necessary to go into making the devices. And like I was here a while back, you had the foam show. So, also interesting to see like periodicals. So I was mentioning on the last stream I had to delete. And if anyone's in the chat, I hope I have good feedback. Hopefully the reception is good. I upgraded my phone to have unlimited reception, but, still see friendship everywhere. So also interesting, people might have a perception of cheap components coming from China. But the reality is many of the most high-tech, best devices on the market also come from China. And one of the areas where China is the best in the world is these electric buses. The American capitalistic market, the nature of changing infrastructure, changing the way things are done is more difficult than in a market like China that I don't know if authoritarian is more top-down, where you could have central planning and have a larger change. So if America wanted to switch to electric buses, it would take decades. It would take market forces, as opposed to possibly in China or even European countries that would have the ability to have a top-down decision and implement those changes much quicker. So actually the electric buses are one of the things that are most made out of China. A lot of these Chinese companies have international partners, mostly German. So as said, if I've been coming to these shows for close to a decade, and um, when I first started coming to these, it would be like half German. So you just see in 10 years the change in technology where it's probably down to like 15% German, and the rise of South Korea and China. I mean, Japan has always been big, and they might be holding steady. In fact, these